Morning all, and welcome to the Glens Falls Industrial Development Agency board meeting for November. We have a quorum, and I know that Tim Larson is going to be missing today, and Mary Gooden has not arrived yet. We do have a limited parking outside due to a funeral across the street, but we think Mary's on her way, but we're going to go ahead and start. Otherwise, we do have a quorum. Thank you all. And our staff and key advisors are here as well, so thank you for being with us. I do not have any kind of special report, but Jeff Flagg may have something to add.
Just a couple of small things, just to sort of keep everybody posted. You know, I've been working with any number of projects that are looking to locate or relocate in the city, some of whom have indicated a need.
We just started, yeah.
Almost all of them, I should say, have indicated a need if they can move forward for some help from the IDA, which I've offered if necessary. Most of the holdups here seem to be bank financing issues, as you can imagine. The one exception seems to be, I may have mentioned this last month, I don't remember, it's been going on for a while. There's a company that's trying to relocate here from Rochester, and I haven't been able to find a property for them. It's this paddle making company who is seems to be committed to coming to Glens Falls. They've been looking much further afield than us in the last month or so, but they were here late last week and said, well, we found several properties down in the Finger Lakes, but they're not Glens Falls.
Okay.
So there's some special conditions that they're looking for, although one is being in close proximity to water, which of course if you're in good proximity to good water, then it's really, really expensive property. So then the canal became an option, you know, for something like that. So we're looking at some options, maybe down on Pines Island, other locations, maybe places that are a little bit further away. But if anybody has, I'm flattered and encouraged by the fact that they're so enthusiastic about being here. Both of the partners, male and female, are from Eastern New York, so their desire to be sort of in closer proximity to us. But that's about the only thing that's going on. One issue I did want to mention, I don't know if this is the point at which to mention it, the last year around this time, I believe, from looking at the minutes, there was the discussion about the money that the IDA had loaned to the CDC for the audit that was done. So we have to figure out, I don't remember exactly, I just was looking through the minutes from last year, and I know this is something you had mentioned, and I think in the past, at the end of the year, the city has to, the IDA has to go, or the CDC, I guess, has to go to the city and solicit the money to reimburse the IDA so that it can balance its books by the end of the year. Kara, I'm not sure exactly what the process for that is. Does the IDA need a resolution to say we need to go ask the CDC
needs
a resolution? If so, I guess we'll have to have a CDC meeting
in
December but I'm not even sure what the resolution would be. Yes, we agreed to.
I don't think we need a resolution,
The city does.
But the CDC could go to the next common council meeting and ask for those funding.
Yeah, I don't think there needs to be a formal resolution, and we have to get the money from.
Not at this end.
Yeah.
But at the city's end.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me know.
How much money are we talking about?
This year, 7,500. Last year it was 3,625. Incidentally, I did, along those lines of the audit, I have reached out to both Jean Lapper with respect to the CDC and Graham Sampson, the housing.
She did urban renewal, yeah.
Urban renewal.
Yep.
And also I talked to the folks down at Marvin and Company, Deb, down at Marvin and Company, and she said they would look and see if they might have the capacity to look at our audits for next year.
For those two agencies?
For the other two, for the IDA and the LDC, potentially, if we want.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Look at some competitive bids, either now or in the future, just to give us some relative idea of what we may be looking at, because these costs are so.
Given that there's no business coming before the CDC, or hasn't been in several years, is there a way that we could put it on pause?
No, not without.
No. reached out to the ABL on that before.
Yeah, isn't the problem that there's still an outstanding
There's
bond
still
with
an
the library?
outstanding bond.
So even though there's no activity per se,
But if there's no activity per se, are we still required to do an audit? Could we,
We're still required to do the audit.
even if there's no activity?
Right, right.
Can we write and ask for a ruling that we're not required to do an audit, given that there's no activity?
Sure, we can make that request. To my knowledge, they have continuously indicated that we need to continue to do them. If we wanna have a CDC, we have to keep it in good standing.
right, I think last year we went through this, the idea was you could close it if you don't have any activity.
Right.
But by the way, you do have activity in the sense of.
Because
having
we
this-
have an open
We have an
bond.
open bond.
Right, so you can't close either.
Okay.
So we're sort of handcuffed a little bit.
Maybe it's something we should take up with our legislative
Sure.
persons, that they would maybe put some type of legislation in that would allow for
An exemption.
exemptions or something, where there's no activity. I don't know. All right. Well,
But anyway,
let
if
me
we can
know.
find some way to limit those, minimize the cost.
That won't
to
help
the
us
extent
next year
possible,
anyway,
we're-
by the
No,
time,
we
right.
still have
Yeah.
to, and we still have to take care of this, so I can go to a common council meeting
Right.
and ask,
Yeah, Jeff
or you
could-
I can
can,
do it, it's not.
you can go
Goes
and do
anyway.
that. Okay, so you'll go
Don't
and
you?
you'll do the
Yeah.
ask on our behalf, and, okay. And since we're not
Just
meeting
explain.
right now, but we will then have a CDC meeting in, December to take care of the transaction.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Very good.
That's about all I have. Pretty quiet right now.
How many more years on that bond?
Ah, quite a few.
That I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was
a
quite
lot
a
of
few,
money.
if I remember.
Well, I mean, so I'm beginning to wonder if we wouldn't, if we're losing money by just having the bond open, which we must be, right? I mean, are they paying us $7,500 a year in interest? No. No,
No, you're not getting paid anything
Anything.
from the company.
exactly.
Which is
So-
was something we talked about at a previous meeting, that if there was another, project to come before the board, that, you wanna charge some sort of annual fee,
The audit
so
fee.
that they caught.
Right, but in the meantime, I'm wondering if there isn't a balance point at which we go back to the entity and say,
Could you make a
how do you feel about paying us off?
Well, I think
you
the
know,
problem you're gonna run into is that, the hospital did that, right? I mean, they
Yeah.
had some bond, but the problem was they were able to lock in a rate which justified paying our bond off.
Exactly.
Nobody's gonna be there now. If they say go out to the market and,
The
get a
rates
private
have
bond and pay
probably
this off.
doubled over what
The
the
bond
hospital
market
has.
should be way better than the
Yeah,
borrowing market.
right. You
So,
would think that
you
we
would
would
think
have
we'd
more
be in
people
better
coming
shape.
to us asking for a bond.
You bet, you
Better
bet.
than zero?
No,
They aren't at zero exactly, but we get zero.
Right, but they're not gonna go, you're not talking about the library. The library's not gonna go refinance, because whatever they're getting now is so much better than anything they could go out and get in the market.
yes,
That
Yeah.
understood.
they have no
They pay
incentive to.
Right.
Anybody, I'm sort of
Was it a
surprised, as you
30-year?
I really
Does
don't
anyone know how many years it was?
said. I wanted to say it was a 10-year bond, wasn't it?
Well, we should be coming close to it then, is what I'm saying.
If it, 10 years, it should, I can't.
Well, anyway,
Well,
it's just a
I
thought.
don't even
It's just a
remember.
thought to approach them and say, this is costing the city,
Maybe they could throw.
over the next X number of years, it's gonna cost the city $30,000. We'd love to help you find another vendor, kind of thing.
Right.
I do think that, it's interesting, given the market, that there hasn't been more interest in bond financing.
Yeah,
But this is a
you're right.
CDC, it would only be the hospital and the library who could.
Right.
Isn't
So
it-
I say we get rid of this
Thought it
bond
was
and we
any
close
not-
it.
Isn't it nonprofit spending? I think there
But
are
they-
some limitations, but I don't think it's,
They have to be centered here.
yeah.
Right,
Right, so
you're-
it's not like you can do, the American Red Cross,
It's
Right.
that
maybe
stuff.
Hudson Headwaters,
Yeah, but they're not even, yeah,
yeah.
The headquarters here.
In Queensbury.
Queensbury. So, you know,
But they
that, so.
could be doing a project here, and they could be.
Right.
They are.
Right,
Well, you also wonder is, does the library, like when they look at their budget,
No.
do they look at, the market for interest rates right now versus what they got, and somehow say, well, boy, there's a big gap there. And you say, yeah, okay, can you afford with that gap to cover the audit cost? And I don't know, something they volunteer.
I mean, I don't know
It'd
what
probably be
they,
cheaper
I
for
don't
them
know
to
what the
cover it.
rates, the bond schedule is or anything
Right.
like that. I mean, it could
We'd have
be
to
a
see.
fluctuating
It-
rate, it could be, there should be, all
There's-
that
Yeah,
documentation.
we'll look
paperwork
into
on it, yeah, just, you know, because
I mean, for
I
them to
say,
refinance though would be extremely expensive.
Right.
right,
It'd be cheaper for them to pay our fee.
Right.
Right, right. Whatever the incentive was to do it then has been magnified
Right.
by multiples
right.
since then.
So I don't believe, I could be wrong, but I don't believe there's any prohibition from an IDA or an LDC to work with a non-for-profit or whatever in their capacity rather than the CDC.
The
It was just-
IDA can't.
But the LDC can.
Well, the LDC can't issue the
Bonds.
bonds under the current
Right.
documents that, the current mission statement that.
Of ours, but it
Right.
isn't a legal prohibition, it's
It
just
isn't
our
illegal.
own, we had a CDC, so we tried to branch it out, and that way we could lend more, you know, because we had a third entity.
Could you-
But I think we get rid of the third entity, and anybody who comes forward to us in the future works with us in one of our other entities.
So in that
Could you,
then-
Oh, sorry.
could you rewrite the LDC to do the same thing the CDC was doing and then maybe incorporate, absorb the CDC into the
Well,
LDC?
that's what I'm saying. I think
That
once
was
we
a-
get rid of this bond, we really should, or whoever's sitting here then, should revisit the thought of having a third entity that we have to pay the carrying costs for, which we don't have any income to do with. So, just,
That was a discussion point in the past about modifying the formation documents, with respect to the LDC and including that language.
Yeah. so, I mean, I believe it can be done, I just don't believe we ever have been, we had the hospital bonds, then we had the library bonds, so it was never anything we were free to do anyway, but we may be free to do so in our lifetimes.
So that would be a change that we would do at the, or you would do at the board level.
So,
Mhm.
let me suggest,
But we have to.
let me
I'm sorry.
suggest two things. Let's engage Kara to do some research on our behalf for, the organizations to see if there's a legal mechanism in which that we could move the CDC into one of the other corporations. So that we still have the authority to issue bonds to these entities, but, would be able to do it in a, I guess, a more organized way. Or
Also, we could make insurance.
separate corporate.
Is it fair to say, and I don't know, because I haven't looked back that far, that, you know, the audit costs, I mean, one of the reasons why this is coming up now is the audit costs as recently as last year, right, was only $32.50.
Only, and we thought that was horrible.
Right.
Okay,
So,
I
I mean,
mean-
my guess is that previous to that, I mean, was it less, substantially less than that 5 years ago?
Well, when
Well,
it
I'm
was
sure it
local,
was.
when it was local, it was substantially less across the board, across
So-
all three, but the CDC, somebody sort of like did,
So at that point,
For
it
us.
didn't perhaps seem like something that you needed to try and somehow recapture. You know, could be
So-
the cost of servicing, you know, public entities.
So my second suggestion is, we're gonna have to have a CDC meeting next month anyways to deal with this cost this year. And so, please come forward with a resolution for the board to pass that we change our policy, that for any deals going forward, that we would be asking them to include an annual fee to cover the cost, some of our costs. And I would say at least $5,000 annual fee.
well, we're already
At
at
7,500.
1.5 times that, so I'm
I'd
saying
say up to
At
10,000.
least
up to
Right.
10,000, depending on the annual cost,
Okay.
yeah. Because we'll bill them.
But I think
when we
the first choice is better. If we can just
Get rid of it.
get rid of it and have the LDC be able to do the same thing.
Yep, so let's
Because we're
do
always gonna
both
need
of those
an LDC.
things
It would make our meetings shorter.
okay.
There's that. So, yeah, we'd have, yeah, anyway, sorry, so there you go, IDA lady. We did a whole bunch of talk about stuff that wasn't you.
All right, so in the meantime, I'll bring this up at the next council meeting and, next one, but certainly before the end of the year.
28th, yes, November 28th.
Okay.
Did we budget for this with did the city budget for the CDC audit by any chance? Not at all, even though we knew there was a $3,500 cost last year?
I'm almost sure no. I mean, I've been heavily involved in the budget. I think that
Okay.
Mayor Hall pulled it year from year wherever he, he just simply put it in a resolution and moved it from one to the other. I know at one point, when we knew we had ARPA money, we pulled some ARPA money out for different projects that at the time didn't make sense to me. Now they're making more sense to me.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I'm already thinking that.
It's just a thought,
I can pull
because
2
going
years.
forward, until
Yeah,
we have an answer to this is gonna be a standard
I
ask.
think I'm just gonna go to the council and ask for 15,000 to cover the next 2 years out of ARPA money. I just need to make sure from Marvin and Company and Suzanne that that's a allowable cost.
Mark, what happens if we end up carrying $7,500, then it's reportable, then our audit is even worse? And, right, because we have fun.
Actual transactions.
So if you ask for 2 years, and if you ask for too much now, it actually probably makes our audit more expensive. Because we'll have money.
Yeah, but are we still gonna
The
be-
LDC,
Right,
the
but
CDC will have money.
But the LDC has more money, and it only costs $7,500 for that audit.
No.
You also have to remember too that
15, right, see,
Okay.
yeah, see.
All right.
Right,
There you go. Then I won't do
heads
that.
up,
Well, Jay, I
right.
think the problem we ran into is that we're at like their minimum threshold. I don't know how high the minimum threshold is. One transaction or so may not push us beyond the minimum.
Right.
Well,
We might be so far underneath the minimum
I
that we
just-
could do much more stuff.
I-
and still
I-
pay
I just-
$7,500.
Somewhere between the IDAs and the LDC.
Well,
The
the
IDA is 7,500.
Yeah, the IDA still
LDC
only
is
pays
15,000.
$7,500.
You could maybe also pass a resolution saying 7,500
What's the
if
LDC?
needed and not transfer the funds until.
Yeah,
Well, I have to.
yeah,
we-
Suzanne needs to balance her books too. She
We
needs to
will-
get it out
well,
of there.
If I'm gonna use that money for it, yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
that's okay. Let me take
Right,
5 minutes and
but
we'll
just,
figure it
yeah,
out.
Okay.
It's not like we're asking for big money. The bigger.
feels big.
the bigger.
And it feels very big for nothing.
For nothing, yeah.
Well, I'm not suggesting we don't look into moving that, but,
Yep.
it's not 700,000 that you're asking for this week.
Right, currently, at this moment.
All right?
Wait till we get to the LDC meeting. Right,
There you
yeah.
go.
I'm not asking for
If you do want to track bond transactions that are happening nearby, we could do that. There's other transactions, they're all on record. If you go to the Housing Finance Agency's board meetings, you could pull down the documents and see what the cost is and what the benefit is of bond financing. And then if it is something that we want to recommend, any projects that are coming forward, it is, something we could look at.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
All right. I can help you find that. Okay. Any further questions for Jeff or for me? There being none. So we have the minutes from the regular meeting that was held October 12th. Any comments or questions on those? There being none, is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So move.
Second?
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays, any abstentions? There being none, the motion is passed, the minutes are approved. Financial report for 10 months ending October 31. Mark, any comments you want to add to that?
Just 3 items, the third quarter CEO wage for $1,500, fish scale for $600, and payroll 40% for $267. And then I set up 3 separate CD accounts, moved the cash from the general operating into the 3 CDs we set up in October, $25,000 each.
And they're all with a bank?
Yeah.
Okay,
Plus Wall National.
okay. And it was the tiered system, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions on the financial report? There being none, is there a motion to approve the financial report as presented?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? There being none, the financial report for October 31 is approved. Schedule A has 2 bills to be paid totaling $642.10. Any questions or comments on that? Is there a motion to approve the bills to be paid under Schedule A?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? There are none. The payment of bills are approved and we'll sign those checks, I guess. Jeff, you raised briefly the auditor discussion. Do you want to talk a little bit more about?
Basically, I covered it there.
Right.
See you above.
Okay. Any other reports?
Jeff, you're gonna work with Suzanne to put out that proposal for different, because we've done that in the past, the city's done it with its own audit proposal. Are you gonna do it separately, or are you gonna work with Suzanne at least?
Yeah, although in the case, of course, of Marvin, they have deferred away from doing the cities because of their conflict with ORPA. So what I'm trying to find out first is whether Marvin has the capacity to do
Do
anything.
ours.
Do agencies.
But you're going to then get from Suzanne the documents to
Sure.
put it out
We
separately?
can use this similar document and
Yeah.
just change the names.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because pretty good chance you're gonna get no takers.
Yep.
And we'll end up using the same company the city uses anyway. Because they did include, our public entities in the city's audit this year.
Yeah, I know.
And it's absolutely silly. We go to all this work to separate these entities, but yet they put it all together in a nice confusing salad.
Yep.
In the audit, but.
Same company that we used?
Yeah, well, what it is what is the bond?
Bonadio.
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 That's what I said.
They changed their process by which, instead of doing an audit for the city and then an audit for our public authorities, they did an audit and they listed them separately and then put the monies in
And
incomes
steered
and
them,
receivables
right, but as
all
if it was
together.
all, yeah.
And they said that's what they do for everybody else. And so it just confused things. We had to separate it out. So
It makes
had
us
to-
look, it makes the city look like it has way more money.
Mhm.
And in the restricted funds, so it's ridiculous. And there's already an audit for the authority, so it makes, yeah.
Yeah, so, but.
Are you putting the city back out to bid?
I'm sure Suzanne has to. We got dinged for not having done it, but the reason we hadn't done it is because several
Wouldn't
years
touch
where
us.
we put it out and only one company replied. And so that was, who was it before Bonadio? It was
Riccadelli.
Riccadelli, yeah.
Whitmore, Dallin,
Guess we got
Riccadelli.
a salad of names there. So anyway, so we did put it out and the only one company came back and I assume that you're gonna get the same. I'm glad that you're looking and talking to people and trying to get other audits, but, right? I mean, the way that, who's the local, Gene Latimer
Latimer.
said that, so that was the first time that I heard that these public authorities have, a special certification that you gotta get and maintain. And
why
that
we
Gene
can't fire
Lapper
people. Yeah.
was calling me to say, hey, you don't need me to do this, do you? And I said, of course we need you to do it. And she said, well, the people that she worked with held that certificate and hadn't got it renewed. And she was panicking. Doing the audit was the easy part. Getting somebody who had certification to sign off on the audit as a public authority was a nightmare. And she called around and found somebody and was able to get through it. But I assume that, unless she's found somebody, she's gonna be out too. And she did urban renewal. And that was the first real understanding of why people were Now, I mean, other than it's a pain and it's not very much money, or, well, it seemed to be. a lot of money to us.
Seems to be.
Anyway, I'll move on. Go ahead. I just, make sure that we work with Suzanne, Jeff, to make sure that that it's getting to everybody that you can, because I know we're sending it to 8 or 9 people, even
Yeah.
knowing that
They'll say no,
they'll say no.
but we have to ask.
So we'll do the same and add anybody else you think can find it, and hopefully get somebody.
Well, my brother is a partner in a rather large firm in Syracuse, and I went to him last year asking what's going on in accounting. And he did not reference the certification to me. I'm sure they have it. His firm is doing the same thing. They do not want to do them anymore.
Yeah.
There's risk to the firm, to the accounting firm, and the money that they can charge is not
Is
sufficient.
that worth the risk?
Is not worth the risk.
Sure.
Yeah.
And or the time associated with it. And so it's the government rule, and what should be incorporated into these audits is cause these accounting firms to move away from that. So it's, again, it's
The
another
perfect
issue.
storm is what it
Yeah.
is, yes.
Talk
Sure.
with,
Would talk to Dan about, sure.
I
Dan-
would
Dan, I would.
say
I'd be
you're-
glad to.
all right.
I have to meet with him, I mean, I'll see him Friday anyway.
I
Veterans Day.
say, this is, it's, your state rules are, all right.
Well, he'll be happy to throw the governor under the bus for that. That's good. We'll bring it
No,
up.
it's
to
not
him.
But that's been a standing rule way before
I know
this.
that, but I don't,
Many governors,
it's funny
yes.
because in the same, when we had the county's, state of the county address, the budget officer, went out of his way to blame the
That-
state for everything.
Yeah.
Anything that was unpleasant about the budget. So I wanted to, I just think it's
You
kind
do
of
the
fun.
same.
I guess so. I mean, I try not to because I wonder who might be listening. I don't
Right.
wanna anger the governor. I want more money from the governor. Right?
But it may be the legislature too.
Yeah,
not the
sure.
government.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
you're not-
Well, and they all need to work together, right? Yeah.
Right.
And these are issues, and I'm glad to, because I don't really have much to bring to our legislators, right? Carrie and Dan. So this is a good one to talk about.
And maybe it's not even rule, it could be an agency issuing rule that they don't really even have the authority to do. And sometimes the legislature can enact legislation that stops them from creating policy that's not in keeping with what the rule is.
Fantastic.
So,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know
bet
where
you
the
they're
problem
not
is.
even aware of it, wouldn't
They
you
may
think?
not be,
Yeah,
yes.
Right.
All
Okay,
right.
thank you.
Okay, project reports, anything, Jeff?
Market Square will table, well, nothing relevant for the IDA, so we can talk more about that in the LDC meeting. The Market Center, you guys are probably all familiar with the fact that it's now begun. We began the groundbreaking, they began really breaking ground the following day. Right now, they're just doing digging. We've been doing some soil testing to make sure that the fill that's there is okay from the previous restored grant. Looks like everything's good with that. So by and large, the Market Center itself is on schedule. We're still looking at, as we've indicated to the state, the approximate opening date of next September. I wasn't aware, but the construction people, we've been meeting every 2 weeks for construction meetings. We now do have, incidentally, all the contractors. There's a resolution in the council to accept them, mechanical engineering and P&M, plumbing and mechanical, and fire suppression, which we didn't get any bids for, so that was held up a little bit. Didn't really matter because that's all stuff that happens farther down the road anyway. We have selected those, and they're within the estimates that we had gotten from the architecture firm. So, I think the Market Center itself is actually on schedule, and we'll talk more about Market Square when we get to the LDC.
And Dr. John and I and the mayor were at the groundbreaking for that, and I know not everybody was able to come, but it was a great event. And towards the very end, it started to rain, and so the woman, Larissa Ovid, across the street, opened up a drinking emporium that the LDC funded, and she had everybody come in from the groundbreaking, and the place was packed.
Yeah.
It was really very nice.
Yeah, it worked out very well for them.
Yeah.
They had their grand soft opening was scheduled for that day at 5. And so we coincidentally were there at 3:30 or so. And so we had talked to them about it ahead of time, that they had opened up the place, they had hors d'oeuvres, they had
Nice.
drinks. It was very well done. I don't think they were prepared to have 65 people all at once before they were even open. But, the rain sort of pushed
The rain
everybody
pushed
in.
us in,
Yeah,
but it
exactly.
was okay.
It went well. It was good. They were pleased too. It helped them a lot, I think, to get them jump started.
Yeah.
So how did their soft opening go? Did you all have to?
It was very hard. It was very hard because I went back to the office at the city hall and drove back by there about 5:30 and it was packed.
Well, John and I didn't leave, we stayed.
Oh.
I snuck out around 6.
Yeah, so it was very well done. And then of course, 2 doors down, they had just opened that day, or the day before the
taco
Mexican
place.
taco place.
Taco.
And they seem to be doing pretty well as well. They're
Yeah, I
doing
hear
good.
rave reviews
Yeah.
about them.
Oh, really?
A
Good.
wide number of people love the food, and I've heard that Golden Monkey's doing well now,
Yeah.
moving forward. It's been great.
Yeah.
I wasn't drinking with the Golden Monkey because I was drinking
Drinks were
Ireland.
good.
You're in an island.
How,
That's right. I was
how
in
are
a
we
pub,
doing with
right.
the bike gang issued on South Street?
I haven't seen any indication of that.
So it
recently.
isn't inhibiting
No,
their
they haven't
openings?
had any problems since then. So.
Okay.
And I'm not sure it was the big gang.
Okay.
I guess so. But.
Good.
Okay. So, no other business to come before us. I think we're done. We have no executive session. Next meeting is December 14th, and I think we'll also
Seems
meet
insane.
with the CDC. And so,
That it's December, you mean?
a motion to
Next
adjourn.
meeting.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Favor. Adjourn. Mayor Alfrey.
All right. Sure, so we can, welcome to the Greater Glens Falls Local Development Corporation meeting. It's still November 9th. We have a quorum. Thank you everyone for being here. The first on our agenda is to review the minutes. Has anybody got any questions, comments, changes for the October 12th, 2023 minutes? Not hearing any, do we have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Financial report, 10 months ending October 31st. Mark, any activity here?
Just, Fitzgerald bill for 144, third quarter CEO wage for 1,500, 60% of the payroll relief for 401, the monthly insurance of 1,157.
Any questions for Mark? Pretty simple. Do we have a motion to accept the financial report?
So move.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And then payment of bills. Back to you, Mark.
The insurance again for 1,157, payroll for 579.15, Fitzgerald for 368 out of the general account, totaling 2,104.47, and the CT mail bill from the DRI for 3,360.
Fantastic. Any questions? Changes, edits? If not, do we have a motion to approve, pay the bills? Excuse me?
Make motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And no disbursements of grants funds this month. Under projects, contingency extension of LDC property sale. Jeff?
Yeah, so as you probably know, we had the current agreement with Benaccio to purchase 45 South and 36 Elm has expired, so we need to renew that. Incidentally, as a sidebar to that, as part of their HCR application, the Benaccio wasn't required to, but benefited from purchasing the pavilion lot, which they completed. We received a check for that yesterday.
Yeah.
The city receives a check for that. So that is in process. What we need to do now, I suppose, and we talked about last month, was to sort of review and renew the agreement with Venatra regarding these two properties. The primary considerations are the fact that we're in the modified agreement need to remove 49 South from the sale. Of course, that's the parcel, the juice and jar parcel that we're putting the pocket park on, or the majority of the pocket park, I guess we'll call it. That's the separate DOS grant that's part of the DRI as well. So in order to make that project, in order for the city to sort of control how that project developed, we need to maintain that parcel. So we're working with.
Acceptable to the grantors, right?
Right.
You need to put the pocket park there, it needs to be substantial. to
We've
the
been, we've been working for a considerable number of weeks with National Grid, because one of the issues we've had to work through was the power situation. The Market Center lot has a power line right in the middle of the lot that needs to be removed. Without going into too much detail, the current line runs underneath from Tom O'Neill's building, Union Square, things, underneath Peter Shabbat's property, and up to this pole, and then connects, currently it's connected to 36 Elm and 45 South, but it's really energizing 38 Elm, which is Mike Cadi's building. By removing that, we have to provide temporary power for Mike Cadi's while the construction is going on. And then we have to have some underground lines now that are gonna go to a transformer, which at one point we thought was gonna be a fairly massive transformer. If any of you have been over to Park and Elm, behind Park and Elm, there's a big, huge, in between there and Empire Pizza. It's about 36 by 20 parcel that takes up, big
green
things with gravel and bollards all around it. We've gotten that down now to where it's about a 15 by 10, including all the bollards, and we can now wedge it, instead of being on this big parcel, which we were afraid was gonna take up much of the 49 South lot, which made it very hard to make this DOS grant work. We've now been able to move this much smaller one over to right behind the incubator. So it's out of the way, it's not gonna bother anybody, plus it gives us the entire 49 South lot to work with. So now we're meeting, in fact, we're gonna meet next week. The mayor's gonna meet, and I are gonna meet with the architects, Envision, but primarily CLA Site, who's the landscape architects for them, to sort of look at designing that parcel that can, one, accommodate enough of the pocket park, the public space, and two, can provide still some outdoor seating for the whatever restaurant would go into where Hot Shots is.
Who's the landscape architect?
It's called CLA Site. Peter Loyola, Scott Miller, they were subs for Envision
Okay.
in the proposal we got. So the short version of this being, that's why we need to remove the 49 South lot from the agreement.
Remember, Venatra wanted to purchase that.
Oh, I do, right.
Yeah, that was in the original agreement.
So that's being removed from this updated contract.
That just leaves 45 South and 36 Elm, prices to remain the same. And I think there's just any conditions that we have and contingencies that they have that need to be altered. And I think the one thing they have, the primary one, of course, is the reception of if they can awarded the HDR tax credit project. And then I believe we had talked about anywhere from a 30 to 60 day notice or window from the notification of award for this to move, for them to exercise this option to purchase.
Right, and they also need the lender to agree to lend and for the HCR tax credits, because they've got to go back to the bank and make sure that the bank is still going to finance the project. So those are the two contingencies they are.
And those are new contingencies, right? Because we've updated this contract a couple times. Right?
That was the request that they made that when we discussed it at the last meeting. They've agreed to our language, that modifications that you set, and I corresponded with Jane as well, and they've agreed to our language, but they do need to also have that tax credit lender investor.
And you're talking about the historic tax credit, not the housing tax credit.
For the phase two financing, yes.
for the phase
Phase two.
two financing.
Right.
Correct.
Right, so they wanna make sure that their whole they wanna make sure that they can do phase two
Before they commit to
in its
phase one.
entirety before they can commit to
You bet.
phase one.
Okay, so they're talking about okay, so the financing for phase two, okay, that's different than
So
I thought.
they're linking the two projects now together.
Right,
They're
right.
trying to
Yeah,
bundle all the
As they were
financing
not, they were
together.
separate and apart,
Which
and
was,
now,
which was a necessity for them. Let's
Right.
remember, we
That's right.
started out one project.
Right.
We became two phases.
That's right.
Now we're going back to one project. Yeah.
the problem I have with this is that, part of the phase one project includes, what do we call it, the incubator building, the white building?
Me and
Yeah.
you, babe.
And that's, has a direct connection to the work that we're doing at the Market Center.
Yeah.
And so we really need, in my opinion, the buildings that are close to the Market Center, we need to start soon.
Mhm.
And so that's my issue with this, is that this doesn't correspond with what we're doing at, next door.
Right, that's correct.
So, and I don't fully understand why they're trying to link the two together from a financing standpoint. They're separate and apart.
They can't make anything in Glens Falls pay unless they can get that housing. You know that, I know that. So, but the question is, last time we discussed even paying them to get into the incubator building and do some work.
We're still working on that. So that's neither here nor there. This contract is expired. They've been now saying that they need the HCR tax credit, they need their financing. And, we all want them to start ahead of time. So the first thing that I think we should discuss is this contract and what we wanna do or changes we wanna make. But I don't disagree. Separately, we met with them. I said that I wanted to start, them to start something on phase one. I appreciated that they had, combined them. I didn't agree. I still think they could make money on phase one. They said, well, we appreciate that, but our investors, we would never take phase one today under current market to our investors. It's now, whether we agree or disagree, this is what they're
That's
saying.
what they're saying, right.
So I said, okay, you wanna tie it together. I've done what you asked. We went and we spoke to the governor. The governor called HCR and HCR called us and they called you. And they said, yes, we appreciate that. We thank you very much. We really, we do appreciate this. So I said, great, we'll extend this contract, but you need to start some work on phase one. And they said, okay, we will do. What does that mean? And I said, I don't care what it means. I don't care what you start. I want work started there. And they said, okay. And then they said, we'll have our attorneys talk about it. And then Libby got on the phone with Kara and said, gee, we can't do this without opening the place. So what we're gonna do is make an appointment to meet with them again, and this time we'll have Libby and Kara in the room. Go ahead.
Having been doing this for all of my career, I don't know of any legal way that, or finance way, that they could start work if they don't control the site, unless, and I understand what you've asked of them.
Sure.
But if they don't control the site, if they haven't actually gone through with the purchase,
Mhm.
I don't see how they can go onto the site, and they'll never have proper insurance, they'll never be able to get any kind of financing for that I know
No,
of.
they
And so
can't,
what
so
you've
we're not asking
asked
for
them
that.
to do,
It's impossible.
I don't think that they can.
All right, so again, let us finish the part of the conversation here about this contract. What do we wish to do?
More money. I want more money.
You
You're
want
not gonna
more
get
money?
more money.
I want a deposit that can't be returned.
Let me ask you one question.
First of all, there's
Yeah.
a question for us. Did we get their check yet?
It's supposed to be coming today via overnight mail.
So,
Are you getting it or are we?
It's supposed to come here via overnight mail.
So,
The old standby.
They've said yes, and we won't send this contract anywhere. Let's talk about this contract. We need to finish it. and we need to get it to them. And we'll make whatever changes you as a board think need to be made and give it a shot.
Mayor, can I get a clarification, just so I understand, the financing challenge that they have apparently now, or that they need to secure, is for phase 2? Does that imply that they either have or are comfortable having the financing with phase 1, or are they implying that they're all
I think
one
they're probably-
funder?
One
not.
together, right?
It's-
I think on their end, it's one.
One, of course it is.
So they're actually looking, is that a practical thing, Judy, that you'd have
It's
a
not,
funder?
it's gotta be separate.
Okay.
Phase 2's gotta be, is, phase 2, and if you had the org chart from their application, you would see it's a separate LLC that's being set up to do that. It's totally separate financing. There is no merger or mixing of
Is it,
financing.
is it possible that you would have the same lender financing both projects, even if it's separate entities?
Sure.
You may have the same,
So I mean, we know who they're talking to for phase 1.
Okay,
Is
well-
that entity, in your mind,
Okay, I don't-
capable of funding,
I don't-
financing phase 2?
I don't have their underwriting model, but it's also possible for phase 2, for the tax credit project, that there is no bank lender. There may be a construction lender, there may not be any permanent loan financing other than
Investor.
the State Housing Trust Fund. It's an investor, it's a tax credit investor. And then there's probably loans from the state. There's a possibility there's no permanent debt on that property. So when you start talking about lenders, not having seen the underwriting, I don't know, but my guess is that there's a construction loan, that there's state housing trust fund loan, and then there's an investor, is my guess.
And the investor is the financier of phase 2?
Correct.
Yes, it's only involved in phase 2. There's
So
no,
there's not a bank?
there's probably a bank who's doing a construction loan.
Right.
On the
But now who
project.
will
It'd be
ultimately
a
own the building?
24-month, it'd be a 24-month
Right,
construction loan.
not a 30-year.
Could be,
Right. Okay, so and the reason I'm asking is because it would seem like it's almost a given that unless and until they can secure that funding, they can't move forward. They can't, I mean, physically can't.
with phase 2, it's got nothing to
But
do
they
with phase
can
1.
over the incubator building in Hot Shots, which is phase 1.
And is separately financed.
Absolutely, separate entities. The Bonaccio will have to set up 2 separate
Right.
LLCs
Right.
to even control those, totally separate. It's as,
No matter what.
no matter what.
Right.
Okay.
You
So-
can't do a tax credit project.
In
Yeah.
connection with a
they're
non-tax
always separate
credit
and apart.
project.
Oh, I got
It's
you.
one thing.
Oh, that's
So
good to know. I
they
didn't
may
realize
be,
that.
they may be saying, so they're saying, we're not moving forward on phase 1 until we find out about the tax credit for phase 2, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's one pot of money.
No, it
Doesn't-
isn't.
Right.
It's got-
So-
right.
Got it.
It's
All
just
right.
they're not attractive
So,
to
Two
the
pots of
investor
money, one project.
for phase
Right.
1,
okay.
unless
Good.
they're guaranteed that the other corner
That
is
they
going to
can
be
do
this
it.
beautiful thing.
Right.
So, as much as I love learning about finance
Right.
and housing markets,
Isn't it
and
great?
building projects, I mean, I do.
But
But
we
the
should-
point here
right.
is we have a contract in front of us. We're asking for one change, which is to remove the 49 South Street property.
Yep.
Then there are 2 other additions. One is an addition that says that they're not moving forward on anything until, that they're not moving forward on anything until they they have the report that says that they received their tax credit from HCR.
And there's a time,
For phase
there's a
2.
time limit on that,
And
correct?
we're putting a time limit on
Yeah.
it. They didn't, in their draft of it, they didn't put a time limit.
Yeah. they're-
And we're asking
But
for,
award letters will go out when? February?
So, it's something that they don't control, it's something the state controls, and they don't, the state has, been spending more time reviewing these things than in the past, and there's no guarantee Then-
So there's not a hard line this
That's
date.
why they don't want to put it.
Somewhere-
in.
The deadline
February,
was-
March.
was November 7th, so they submitted, let's say, on November 7th. I don't think the mayor has a copy yet. He should get a copy of that. And then I would say that the state will take 4 to 5 months at least to review. And now, part of the problem is that it's not just tax credits, they're probably, again, I haven't seen the underwriting, but they're probably also asking for what's called housing trust fund loans from the state. And my guess is that the state needs the budget to pass on March 31st in order to have more housing trust fund loan money to be able to award. And so my guess is that they probably can't make decisions until after the state budget is passed on March 31st.
Oh, boy.
So that's why, I mean, they're not messing with us when they don't wanna put a hard date in, I
No,
get
they
that.
don't
yeah.
know.
Well,
Well, there is a
but we are
hard
putting
date
it
back
in,
out
yeah.
to, it goes out to now April 1st.
Right, and then we could renew without
Right.
possibility of amendment. Yeah, I think that's fair.
And we also were saying 30 days from the announcement, and they're saying, can you make it 60?
60.
So their request is 60. Do we want to go to 45? These are the things about this contract. We're not,
So-
none of us are comfortable with this, but unless you have a suggestion of how you want to change this, other than blowing up this process, I don't think there is one. And so I really would love to hear it, because, so that one and the other one is the financing. Those are the changes to the
Do
contract.
we have to vote on this today? Or do we-
Yes.
Yeah,
I mean,
'cause
it's
they gotta
expired.
get, right, we want
expired.
them to be in contract with us.
And we need to be
Yeah,
in contract.
We do.
So
And
what-
there's, go ahead.
What information, so I understand what we're waiting on for the state and that date is not controllable.
Yep.
What's the timeline for them
So
for
then,
financing?
so then by April of next year, as you know, things like totally, the landscape totally changed between April and September of this year.
Right.
So what they're afraid of is even if they get the credits, that when they go out to secure their financer, it isn't going to be
And we don't
attractive
have any
anymore.
information at this point about what they're doing as far as financing
Right.
this too. We don't have, we're not
Yeah,
privy to
right.
that.
No.
No.
So
So,
they,
Judy,
they,
let me ask you a question. What is the practical chance that they, and they could be anybody, not just this project, a project selected for HDR tax credits fails to get financed?
you don't mean financed by the
Well,
state
whatever,
housing
whatever they're
authority.
trying to secure, whatever financing.
You
that
mean
they
the
need to
private,
secure.
the private
Right.
investor, the
What's the
investor.
practical chance that doesn't happen? That HCR says, yes, you'll get awarded, and then 6 weeks later, they go, oh, we can't do it. Does that ever happen?
Yes,
Yes.
but very unlikely.
Yeah.
Okay, so then, I mean, to some extent, this isn't really much of a
It does,
concession.
it doesn't really matter because their position is valid. That what they're saying to us is, even if step 1 is met, we need assurance that step 2 is met before we can go forward with you. They need not only the credit, but they also need the financer. And they're right, they do.
Right, and if-
So we're still gonna have to wait until after April.
So that's why they're
Well,
asking
whatever.
for, we wanted
Whatever
30
comes
days,
in.
but they're saying in order to line up their financing, it may take them 60 days.
We're already
And I'm just looking at
in a
last year.
pause area here, right, on this, it's already been, is the date already?
Well, they've made a request to extend and we haven't
We haven't
responded to it.
responded? Okay.
We discussed it.
And what is
Okay.
the,
We're gonna
so,
run out?
I'm with you,
nothing's
there's
Yeah,
nothing
it
we can
expired
do.
no, there is nothing we can do. I mean,
It
there is plenty
expired
we're
on-
going to do.
The contingency ran
And
October
to get them doing
to get
something
them
else.
started.
Right.
But
But
there
in
is
terms
nothing
of-
we can
I-
do about extending this contract. Or if you have some suggestions about change to the contract, I'm willing to listen. But,
So,
go
okay,
ahead.
so it's already expired.
Well, it's not expired. From a contractual standpoint, there was a contingency date. They made a request to extend it. We haven't responded to that yet.
Can we wait and take this up in December?
Why? No.
No.
Why?
Okay,
You can't.
because what I'd like you to do is to get a full copy of their application for 2, so that we can look at it and see.
It doesn't matter, Judy, because
It
they
doesn't
submitted their
make any
application,
difference.
and whether we think that that it looks like it's a winner or not has absolutely no weight
Correct.
whatsoever,
And,
so.
and we already know, and we're already working with ESD or Leslie, is it? DOS. And we're coming up with contingencies. We're not just sitting and waiting until March or April to do nothing. We're taking plenty of things. But what we're talking about is extending this contract.
This is our contract
There
with
is
Anaccio,
no- there
and
is
we
no-
got to
And what's
I think-
the
them in
total
the
amount
game.
of our contracts?
Well, ours is the sale, it's $395.
$395, yeah.
Okay.
If we deny, from a contractual standpoint, if we deny the request to extend, then
They can walk.
they can
I mean,
terminate the
totally walk.
contract
Well,
and
they're
say
gonna
Totally
walk.
walk.
They're gonna
Because
walk
we've
anyways.
got
If
no
they don't
deposit.
get, they don't get the credit, they're gonna walk.
And even though
So,
it doesn't matter,
I think
if
that-
they're depositing
Might as
only
well-
$10,000.
I think we gotta have
they're gonna walk, they're gonna walk.
I agree, you gotta have higher deposits,
I'd
so
like,
they're gonna walk if they don't get the funding, so at least we're gonna get something out of it.
My
if they walk.
recommendation is that we add a $20,000 deposit, that they have in addition.
So they're sending us a deposit for 10,000 now. And as we receive the check, we're gonna ask for 10,000 more
No.
to extend this. What?
20,000 more.
20,000 more.
Yeah, to
I
extend.
think that's ludicrous. You
Yeah, it's
can't,
not-
look, we're in a
that's
dance
not
for it. It's done. We're in this. I know that you're not comfortable with it. I'm not either. If you wanna so you're.
Well, you could ask.
Well, is there a motion to extend this ask them for 20,000 more of a deposit that was due a year ago that they haven't given us?
Here's the compromise.
Sure.
Date of letter, positive award, $20,000 deposit. They get their 60 days to set a refundable deposit, but they put forward 20,000 more once they have their letter. Okay?
What letter?
Their HCR letter. Once they got their award.
No, I want the 20.
I understand, but I'm telling you that that's a loser. Right now, I as a you know that's a loser. It's a loser. So, but once they have their award, in order to get their 60 days for financing, with whatever, then they put 20,000 refundable if they can't get their financing, but 20,000 in the pot to show good faith, and that they should have no problem with that. And that should also satisfy the populace because we're doing something.
It just seems we're making all the
We are.
concessions.
Guess what?
Yeah,
We
we
are.
have no choice.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
You know,
Well,
as I said
interest
to
rates have
Billy,
changed, everything's changed.
Right.
People are walking away from DRI.
right,
And we were
people
told
don't,
that
people
by the
aren't even
governor.
applying, people don't want this money because it's so hard to spend this money. It's true.
They're raising interest rates to stop this,
Yeah.
to stop this growth, and everybody knows it. And yet the governor has done quite a bit to get HCR to tell us and to work, and so
Well, their refusal to put money up front is also part of the problem. So as people are walking away from DRIs, it's in part because of state policy too.
Oh, gotcha. All right, fair enough. Yeah,
So
and there's
the-
a lot of reasons,
Okay,
but
The
there's.
20,000 refundable is refundable if they don't get the financing.
If they don't get their financing.
Okay, but
But they have to show us
Is it,
that they have to show
so
us.
does
it.
that
Which
then
is
come off the
which
Which
purchase
is hard
price?
to- Yeah, which
I don't know
sounds
why.
like.
Yeah,
sounds
Yeah,
like-
yes.
I
it
don't know
would
why
come
you
off the
bothered,
purchase
though.
price.
Are there any other suggested amendments to this contract?
I don't think the 20, asking them if 20,000 that's refundable if they don't get their financing, it's ridiculous. They're just gonna walk away anyways, who
Yeah,
cares?
that's right.
But,
Well,
but
and we're gonna
guess
have-
what? Yes, they are. Yes,
But-
they are.
But it just, I don't know. It's-
I'm just saying it's a step, it's a recognizing the award in a practical way.
Right,
That's all.
it's recognizing that the award is the driver behind the
Right.
entire process.
That's correct. That's all.
I think the financing is probably more of the issue.
Sounds like
Oh, they've got their they know where they're going for their financing.
Yeah.
The only thing that's gonna change that is if the market has, in fact, come spring, done a number, which
Well, if
Well,
this
if it-
doesn't
we're in a
happen,
slow
gonna
fall,
lose
we're
the
not, we're not in a rapid fall,
You
we're
gotta
just in a
keep in
slow fall.
mind, if this doesn't happen, we're gonna lose the DRI.
We're gonna have,
and
I'm
you're
gonna present
lose
to
it
you,
for market
I'm
center.
gonna present to you a new bid for the two properties that we have.
Yeah.
Long before then.
Yeah.
And we but based on that they don't get it. And be ready to
Right.
go
Plan
and
B.
have
That's-
the Department of State have given us approval for it. When we said it to them that we wanted to do that, they said it's too awful to contemplate.
Right.
We appreciate that. Okay, they don't want this to not happen. That's why they were pushing, and they want Bonaccio to do this. And so do we. We all want this, but we will not do it. And they know that, and they know there's a risk. We've talked to them too. The Department of State knows that as we break ground, that we've taken a huge risk. And so we're going to have a second proposal all ready to go April 1st, right? They don't get this, then we're going to do it. We're going to try our best. Because I am not going to be the guy who has to turn to the Common Council and say we just built a $5 million project and we're not going to get the money back for it. Okay? But that's where we're at. And that's what we had to do to make, and we need to, whatever changes you would like to make to this contract, we need to make them and get it to them so that they don't have an excuse to walk away completely. Right? And I do believe though, in all the talk that we've had, that if they do get this HCR tax credit, that they can't walk away, that they need to find financing, because then it will make them look bad and they won't get. Then not only, I think they'll upset HCR, but it's more about the other piece of this from the state, all their future development.
And now
ESD.
in your sideline, so the minute that award is out, we get headlines in both the Chronicle, the Post-Star, whatever, Bonaccio awarded, so that it makes it harder for them.
For them
to
to,
correct.
for them
Yes.
to cancel,
Yeah.
sure.
Right.
But they may come back to us if their financing has changed, if interest rates continue to climb between now and April.
They won't.
I hope
Not in a rapid way.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's good.
Given the linchpin that they have made, given the linchpin that they have made the HCR tax credits, it's very, very difficult for me to imagine they get the tax credits and then refuse to move on either phase 1 or phase 2. It's almost impossible for me to
Correct.
imagine that.
That's correct. But this is their introductory build with this, correct?
Yep.
This is their first venture forward.
Sure.
So I
that would make it
understand
even-
their need for caution.
Yes, but that would almost make it even more important, right? That should they
Absolutely.
get
I
them, because
think-
if they don't, they're done.
It
They're not gonna be-
seems that they are very interested in trying this, so I think that that's a positive thing.
Well, it seems from what you've been saying, Judy, that this almost seems like the model that large housing projects are gonna do going forward. I mean, if they're gonna include affordable components.
Well, they've already submitted to the state an application. In that application, they have letters of intent for both the investor and the construction financing and possibly debt financing. And so they've already have letters of intent with investors and lenders.
Which makes this second condition almost procedural
Well, yes, I mean,
They're just
and a given.
so.
CYA. They're, they're,
No,
then they should.
It's not, it
Then they
doesn't sound
should.
like an escape clause, it just sounds like a procedural requirement.
All right, we're done.
So it's, yeah. it's good.
So are you okay with me signing this contract extension after Kara makes that addition request of the 20,000 upon HCR notification? Is
And the
everybody?
removal of 49 South from.
And the removal of 49
That's-
South.
Yeah,
Is anybody?
that seems,
As long as the document makes reference to tax credit investors and not lenders, then I'm fine with it.
Do we have a motion to allow me to do that?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Maybe.
And I agree, I would, yeah.
Maybe.
Right, maybe.
Extension?
That is maybe.
Thank you, and you will soon have from us the beginning of that draft of that proposal. We cannot wait. I have no intention. We're actually gonna meet with them, and I am gonna ask them to move forward to phase 1, but I do understand that they can't really do that without owning the property. I'm thinking of, what I'm going to do is ask them what it is that they would start if they got this HCR tax credit. What would be the first part of the project they'd start over? on phase one, right? What would it be? Would it be emptying out the Hot Shots building? Would it be emptying out this building, that building, whatever it is? If I could get that and say, yes, this is what we would do once we got the tax credits and we bought the buildings. I'd like to say, how about you? You are a construction company. How about we pay you out of the grant money we have set aside or the money we have this all in bond, right? Let us pay you to do that. And if you get the HCR tax credit, you don't get payment for it. You're now just did the work, a $250,000 worth of work on these buildings that you will now own and be moving forward with. And if you don't get it, we'll pay you to do this work because it was done, and it won't be in the part of the bid. We'll say, we now have a cleaned out building or a new roof on a building, whatever it is that they'd say they'd start. I'm gonna ask, I'm gonna try. And we'll see. They can simply say no.
Yep.
We can't. I know that they're worried about insurance, but they have insurance, and
And
we'll
we
have
have
insurance on the
insurance.
building.
We
So,
still have insurance.
and
We pay it every month.
And if they get some work done and they put the Bonaccio construction banners, I'll sleep a little better at night. That's it. Okay? Do we have any other business? I don't believe we need to go into executive session. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Stand adjourned.